All right, thank you. And we've got one more song. It's Nearer My God to Thee. This is one of my favorite songs, so I'm very happy to sing it today. Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, Lancaster Gate. Good morning. It's good to see you. And God has a difficult gig, right? If you think about what he's trying to do, reaching out, reconnecting his family to him. He's trying to reconnect a family that he was separated from, that's splintered out and kind of in confusion, in disarray. And what's really tough about what God has to do, he has to use people. People with lots of difficulties, challenges, unfortunate experiences. He has to use people with all those things to actually do the work. And so I want to talk a bit today about outreach. And it's not something I've necessarily spoken about for a while, and the reason for me I felt maybe sometimes to focus on other things in our community is because I felt like we reach out, but then what do we bring people to? And so if we reach out, we want to have a place to bring people to. We want to have something to introduce them to. We want to have a framework in which they can feel secure and confident. And so just what we did, for example, with Janely is something that we're trying to remain consistent with. We want to have a sense that when someone new comes here and comes regularly, that everyone at least gets to know their name and gets a chance to greet them and be civil and hopefully loving, and to have that demonstration of our love through praying for them as well. And then beyond that, we need so many other things, actually, in terms of having a process. But if we go to the start of that process, or one aspect, I don't know if it is the start of the process, but one aspect of the process is reaching out, or outreach. And so I want to ask us about, get us to question ourselves today, ask ourselves a sobering question, which is, how relevant is the outreach that I have in my life? Whoever you are, whatever you do in your life, if you're going to be successful, you're going to need to know how to listen to people. You're going to need to have a sense of the importance of understanding people and being relevant to those that you want to communicate with in your life, whoever they may be, whether it's at work, in your family, in terms of your mission and your faith. And what I want to argue and suggest today is that we at some point in all of that need to meet and recognize and respond to people's felt needs, the needs that people feel inside them, in order to get their attention. If I ask you this question, do we have a powerful witness and an effective outreach? Do you have that in your life? I mean, the safe answer would probably be, as a community, as a movement, no and yes, or yes and no, right? That would be the safe answer. Yeah? Because, if we look at our UK movement last 20 years, it hasn't grown very much, and that's a British understatement there. Yeah? In terms of number of faith community, okay. Well, on the other hand, we just had 2 million people following on their TVs, some of our congregation on their journey to marriage and blessing with true parents. And we've reached out in broader ways through other programs and so forth. But as a faith community, as a people who worship together and share their lives together intimately, there's that question. But it's a question really that you and I can answer in our own heart, first of all, and don't want to dwell on that now. But really what I want to look at now is, what could we do better? Or what would you like to see in your life in order to make your outreach stronger, more powerful? But I want to start by showing you an example, a rather unusual, maybe you might think unorthodox example of someone speaking about what they believe in. Now this is a person, okay, his job is to communicate, he's a comedian. He's a person that's offended many people. Someone else resigned from the BBC because of a joke, an offensive joke that they made on the radio, on someone's answering machine. He's not regarded by many people as the most moral person. But nevertheless, I want you to watch this short piece of an interview with him and just maybe see if there's something we can learn from him. So, introducing to you, Russell Brand. Give him a round of applause. Make him feel welcome here with us.
So I would like to somehow expose in myself and explore within myself and culturally the possibility of us aspiring to greater things. Many have said, haven't they, Jeremy, that the fact that we desire these products, that we have these aspirations, is an indication that we can still change, that we can still strive, that we have within us a yearning for something higher. Someone told me once that all desire is the desire to be at one with God in substitute form. So perhaps we can draw attention not to the shadow on the wall, but to the source of light itself.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
I'm really surprised. Do you have any, have you always believed in him? Do you worship? Do you go to church? What do you do?
I pray and I meditate. and I try to align my desires with things that are less selfish, and it's an ongoing struggle because of the egotism and the needs in me and stuff. I'm just trying to be a better person.
What do you think we should aim for then?
I think that we should try to examine the things that we're using to make us happy. This pursuit of celebrity, of wealth, of status, this consuming of products, this ignorance towards ecological and economical matters, and try and aspire to something more beautiful, something more truthful and honestly. I'm not as you must have noticed, a politician or a theologian. But
No, you're not the Messiah either, but...
one would hope not.
No.
But I think that there are some very... I've been spending a lot of time with that David Lynch, the film director. Through transcendental meditation, he says we can access a unifying field of energy from which all creativity comes, be it physical, atomical, or intellectual. Perhaps if we were all in tune with more beautiful things, perhaps we wouldn't prioritise such peculiar ideas and notions. And perhaps if we can popularise through the techniques of branding and consumerism a different idea, a different narrative, perhaps the world can change. After all, it changes constantly and incessantly. It's just that the perceptions that we have are governed by people with self-interest that are not in alignment with the health and safety of us as individuals or as a planet.
Blimey. Russell Brand, thanks very much.
That's the end of my interview.
It is. Is that enough? That's surely
There's
enough.
so many more things to be said. We've barely started on the film. We've not done any offensive language. There's been barely any sexual content. There's been no potentially dangerous behaviour.
How long do you want? All night?
I'm going to need more.
So just imagine him coming to your door with a survey and wanting to share what he has to share. So how did he do? Yeah? He is certainly passionate, right? About what he is saying. And he understands, actually, the world he lives in. He connects the reality of people's worldly aspirations to something deeper, something more profound. And he tries to show that actually what people are really seeking is something deeper, something more significant. And he's certainly relevant. Why? I mean, just because of who he is, first of all, he's relevant. Everybody knows him. They're either offended by him or they love him. People will listen to what he says. So, I don't know, you may agree with me, you may disagree with me about Russell Brand. But how about you and I? How well can I articulate what I do, what I am, what I believe? How well can I provide a context that is going to be intriguing to other people? That other people, when I share the context of, when I share what I believe in a context that's relevant to them, they want to know more. I have a desire, and I'm sure many of you do, to learn how to reach out more effectively. And that, again, I want you to think of this not just in a religious context, but this is something that is universal in our life. We need to reach out every day to our family members, to the people we live with. We need to reach out to people at work if we're going to work together with them. We need to reach out in our community if we're going to be part of a community. And when we talk about outreach in the unification movement, I think we're actually talking about more than just one thing. We're talking about how we reach out and my witness. And so I don't want to talk so much today about my witness, because we also talk about witnessing. But I want to separate reaching out and my witness, because I want to concentrate on that next week. But just briefly, just to clarify what I mean by my witness or witnessing. A witness, if you've ever been to a court of law and someone's brought out to talk to the jury, to the judge, and of course to the accused as well, and they're there to talk about something that they saw firsthand, and hopefully something that they saw not too long ago, and give evidence of something that happened, something that they heard, and based on what they say, the jury and the judge are assimilating all the information, and they'll come to some very serious conclusions about someone's life. That's what a witness does. They help to bring about a conclusion. And, the hope of the jury is that that witness is not recounting something that happened 10, 15, 25 years ago, and their memory has played tricks on what actually happened and it's somehow turned into something else. So to bear witness in my faith in a faith context, I want to be testifying to something that happened, not only something that happened 10, 20, 30 years ago to me, but I want it to be current. I want it to be fresh, vibrant, vivid, because that will compel someone to take it seriously. That's what compels a jury to take a testimony seriously in a court of law and go away. And when they talk about it, they're like, that witness really sounded like he saw what he saw, he heard what he heard. And so, therefore, I want to testify to God's love and God's principle working in my life, not from 1993, but from yesterday, from last week, from Friday morning, from Saturday morning. I want to be able to say that God's principle is bringing solutions in my life on a daily basis. But that's for next week, and looking at a powerful witness. And so reaching out is part one, I think, of this mission, and my witness is another part of it. So reaching out, the reason I wanted to talk about reaching out first is because I think some of us have experienced, either ourselves or seen someone else, jumping to our testimony instantly when we want to communicate with someone about something important. And we witness before we have taken the time or had the patience or sensitivity to actually reach out, to be aware of who we're really talking to. When I communicate with someone, when you communicate with someone, you have a sense of, I know something that they need to know or that I want them to know. Whenever you communicate with anyone about anything, it's like they need to know this. When you put a new update on your Facebook, like everybody needs to know this. I mean, maybe they don't, but you think they do. Yeah? It might be a funny story. Yeah? It might be just telling someone when dinner's going to be. It might be about an event. It might be an opinion that you think this is an opinion people need to know about. But is it relevant to the people or the person that you want to share it with? When we all have a part of our brain is checking or wants to check if what I'm about to say is really, really helpful for the people or the person that I'm about to share it with, this piece of information. Yeah? Something unconsciously is just sort of filtering, oh, well, I don't need to include that and can leave that out. What they really need to know is this, and is this the right time to tell them? I think parents do this a lot, like when they're trying to negotiate things with their children, like, oh, it's not the right time to talk to them about it now, let's do it then. That will be a really good moment to get this across, or whatever it is. But we also have this, I think, mechanism in our brain that somehow bypasses that filtering or that sensitive part of the brain that's trying to check if what we're saying is relevant. Part of our brain is wanting to tell us that we should assume that what we have to share, other people will definitely want to know. And so I'm sure you've experienced talking to someone and something's telling you, they're not really listening to me. I'm going to carry on, but they're not really here with me right now. This listening thing is really important before we speak, to be able to listen. And so some of us will assume or conclude that even if someone's not interested in what we've got to say, well, they need to know it anyway. And maybe sometimes that's true, but probably a lot of the time, we're saying things that's going in one ear and out the other. So the ability of someone who's communicating to listen, really listen to the person that they want to communicate with first is an amazing quality, amazing kind of step forward in being an effective communicator. You know, John F. Kennedy was known, you know, the famous American president who got assassinated. He was known as being someone that when you sat with him and had a conversation, you felt like he had all the time in the world to ask you questions and listen to what you had to say. And that people had a sense that while he was listening to them, he had blocked out the past and the future, and he was completely there to take in what they were saying to him. So this ability to listen is really precious. And it's maybe why God gave us, I mean, you know, you've all heard this before, 2 ears and 1 mouth. Yeah? How do you feel when you're on the receiving end of someone who you feel just wants to tell you something without really checking if you want to hear it? How do you feel, Veronica?
A bit patronised.
Yeah? Frustrated? Bored? You know, I think what a lot of us do in that situation is we simply think, when are they going to finish? Yeah? How sad if you're talking to someone and all they're thinking is, when are they going to finish? It's a really dangerous thing to say up here on a Sunday morning. I know, but anyway. You know, you and I have a lot of people to reach out to in our life. Like I said at the beginning, every day, at home, at work. And as a person of faith as well, we have people to reach out to. Like I said, God has a difficult job on his hand. He has to reach out through people. He needs people who can reach out effectively. And, you know, when you experience the joy of successfully reaching out to someone, just let's say in your family, at home, and what that does to a relationship, what it does to the spirit in the home, when you experience that, you can take that model and you can use that at work and in your faith and in evangelizing and apply it there as well. But I think probably if we don't do it at home, we're really going to struggle to do it on a bigger scale. You know, there's a beautiful example of reaching out and of sharing the good news that God has to share. If you go to, if you look at John 9, where Jesus is walking with his disciples and they see a blind man, and somehow they understand that he's been blind from birth. And I've used this story in a previous sermon when we talked about faith and some other things. But basically the disciples asked Jesus, you know, is he blind because of his parents' sin, or for, you know, they've got this concept of why he's blind. And Jesus tells them, no, it's for none of those reasons. It's actually so that God can, he says something quite unusual. He says it's because so that God can show everyone that the Messiah is here and that, you know, I am here to be a light to the world. But then when he's finished talking to his disciples, he turns to the man. He doesn't talk to the man about who he is, what he's got to share in terms of God's providence. He just sees that he's blind, and because of what he can do, he spits on the ground and he makes a little mud, ball of mud, and he puts it on the guy's eyes, and he says, "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." And so the Bible says, so the man went and washed and came home seeing. So I don't know what Jesus was thinking at that moment, but maybe Jesus knew as he did that, as he met this person's needs, he was creating something that was going to turn into a big explosion. Something that wasn't just going to affect that man, but was going to have a kind of knock-on effect, like an avalanche effect in that little community that day. It was going to turn people's concepts upside down. It was going to get people arguing. It was going to get people questioning. And of course, what happens is that people see that he can now see, and they take him off to the synagogue, and the Pharisees start questioning him and asking how on earth could someone do something like this on the Sabbath. And they get into this big debate and quite tense situation. And then while he's in the synagogue talking to the Pharisees, they're questioning him, and they start to get upset. And he says, the man who's been healed says, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, this man who's healed me, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." So Jesus hasn't said anything to him about truth, about theology, about what he has to do or be. All he's told him is to go and wash his eyes. Yeah, he hasn't asked him to come back and stay with him. And this man is already testifying to who Jesus is. And anyway, they get upset with him and they chuck him out of the synagogue. And that's where Jesus comes back into the story. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and he went and found him. So that's interesting, because maybe if they hadn't thrown him out of the synagogue, if they had just accepted what his testimony was to how he had been healed, Jesus wouldn't have gotten involved again. He would have left it. It's like, I've done what's needed to be done. The man has understood something about the person who healed him, and they can work out the rest themselves. He didn't need him to come and follow, to come and follow him and his disciples and go somewhere else. But because the man's thrown out, again, Jesus' concern for the man's need comes in. And so he goes to find him, and he says to him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man? Do you believe in Christ?" And the healed man says, "Who is he, sir?" The man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Because, of course, he didn't see Jesus before. When Jesus put that mud on his eyes, the last time he saw Jesus, he couldn't see him. Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." The man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. So, I don't know, he fell down on his knees and kissed his feet or whatever. But the interesting thing for me in this story, I don't know if you see that, but if I've explained it well, but the first thing Jesus does is he meets the needs that the man, he solves a problem for that man, a problem he's had all his life. So when we think about what we want to share with people, if you think about what it is you want to share from your life with other people, how is it relevant to solving the problems in people's lives? How much of what you have inside you is actually, Jesus could perform miracles, so that's quite a useful thing to do when you want to meet someone's needs, yeah? Okay, so you and I, maybe we can't perform miracles in that way, but how is it that what you have inside you is able to be something that you can use to reach out to people? And how do you use that rather than always maybe sometimes sharing your opinion with people? You first try to meet their needs. So when we consider our church circumstance, when we think about as a community here in Lancaster Gate and the wider community around us in this part of London or in the area of London where you live, one thing I'd like us to do is go out and do a survey, and I'd like to show you some questions later. There's something we can practically do to learn how to listen and understand and be relevant. But as we do that, we have to also ask, well, what is it in terms of people's needs that we can really meet? We don't want to go out there and raise people's expectations in a way that's unrealistic, do we? So we've got to do that with a sense of discernment. But I guess if we can learn to respond to people's needs in a way that's within our capacity, we will get people's attention and be able to say something more to them. And again, if you can do this in your family, if you can really try to practice this at home, with your parents, with your children, with your brothers and sisters, with the people who are sitting here with you now, then you will be already much more equipped to do it when you want to share something about God with others, because you'll understand the sequence. So I just give you a little example from my week last week, and if you've got children, and if you've ever experienced taking children to primary school and getting them all there, and we got 4 boys to get to school every morning, and some of them are faster than others at getting ready, and there's the toothbrushes and the socks, and you've got to get it all in the right order, and then you've got to get everyone in the car at the moment where we are. And so, it can get stressful when someone's ready and wants to get to school and someone else is walking to the car with their shoes in their hand, their socks in their mouth, and, and this particular morning, one of the boys who always likes to be ready and likes to be at a place on time, not late, as usual, was in the car, and he was going swimming this day, and we drove off, and he looked in his swimming bag, and the trunks he had in there were a pair of trunks that he really didn't want to wear. Yeah, he was already angry or frustrated because we were late, and these are a pair of trunks that once got thrown in a bin in a swimming pool when they got lost, anyway, I said, but we washed them. Yeah, and so he was upset about these swimming trunks, and then I said, well, I think they look quite cool. And the reply I got was, I do not value your opinion highly at all. Yeah, and this was not about the swimming trunks. This was my opinion in general. Yeah. And so we got to school, dropped them off, and I get the feeling that once everyone gets out of the car, a lot of that stuff gets left behind, and you just get on with your day. But I had another one to bring to school who hadn't got ready yet, so I went back home, and he decided he was going to school, and I thought, but where's those other swimming trunks that he wanted to bring? Yeah, and I had a look around the house, and I wasn't sure if we'd get back to school in time before he left for swimming, but I thought, anyway, let's just do our best, because I'm thinking, this is an opportunity, for me, as a dad, there's so many times when I get it wrong, so many times when they're frustrated with me. Here's a chance to get something right. And I found these orange shark swimming trunks, and we got in the car and got Eddie to school, and then met the other one who was going swimming, coming out of the school with all his friends. He was fine by now. He was chatting with his friends, he'd forgotten about it. And I said, oh, do you wanted these, yeah? He said, oh, yeah. Thanks. How's my opinion now? Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. So that kind of doesn't make rational sense, because he still doesn't agree with me about those other trunks. But I did something to meet his needs. And that feeling when you meet someone's needs and you feel like, yeah, I made it. I might be overblowing this. If I go away and talk to him about it, he might say, it was not such a big deal, Dad. Don't get too excited about yourself. But if you can meet someone's needs, they're immediately more open to what your opinion is, whether they're going to agree with it or not. But you've got a bit more space, you've got a bit more time. And we're not all going to be able to articulate whatever is in our head as fast and quickly and as fascinatingly as Russell Brand does, right? I obviously can't, yeah? You probably find it hard too. So if you can meet people's needs, you've got an extra mile with them. So I just want to show you this questionnaire to finish. Is that okay? If we get it up? So, and I called it the 43LG Local Community Survey. The document file says draft. And it says to listen, to understand, and become relevant to the needs of our local community. Because I wonder how many of us know what the needs are, care, what people think and feel in our local community around here. And I think that's a question, we've got to ask ourselves. So I think a good first question for us to ask people if we go out is to say, what do you think is the greatest need in this area? At least I think it would be a great starting point for a conversation. I think it's good to know, if people are already part of an active church or a religious community, because, we don't necessarily want people to have to leave their religious community and join ours if they've already got one that's probably as good or might even be better, yeah? So, but, we could at least, if we know that, we can make friends with them. We can make friends with someone from another church or mosque. And in terms of relationships between churches and different faiths, my experience is it's much better when it's between individual people building that friendship rather than on a sort of political level. So are you actively part of a church community? If they're not, then why not ask, instead of asking, why don't you go to church? Which could be a bit in your face, really, couldn't it, as a question. Why not ask, why do you think people don't attend church? Yeah? Because, we've got a good 20 seats still free in the room today, and we've got a community of 160, and there's definitely less than 160 chairs in the room. So, maybe people are working, or there's lots of different reasons, but if this is important to you, don't you think we would like to know why people don't go? Because unless we know why, we're never really going to get to the heart of the matter, are we? And then to ask, if you were to look for a church to attend, what kind of things would you look for? You know what maybe you feel is important in being part of a community, what you value, but let's find out if other people value the same things, have the same needs. What advice can you give to a church that really wants to be helpful to people in the community? So again, this clear intention to listen to people's advice and feedback and be informed by them to get that objective perspective on whether we're doing some things right as a community or if there's some other things that we need to work on. And then I just put these two last questions because I think, there's the two things that I guess come up in my week, every week, things I'm asking myself, I'm dealing with what I'm worrying about and I'm dealing with what I value. And I'm always trying to solve what I'm worrying about, and hopefully I involve God in that. And I'm also trying to catch hold of what I really value, because I'm being told, like Russell Brand was talking about in terms of branding, I'm being told all the time about all sorts of things that I should be valuing in my life from all the advertising and media all around me, but what do I really value? And so to know, or to invite people to think about what they really value in their life, and to see if a church community or being part of a faith community can really help to protect those things, really help to strengthen those things that people really value in their life. So, anyway, my intention is to get this printed up and to see how many people would be interested in using this, not firstly as a way to go witnessing, as we call it, but as a way to learn how to reach out, a way to learn how to listen more deeply to the needs of our local community. And based on that, hopefully then, to be in a position to share our living testimony, to share that true parents are with us and how relevant they are to the world we live in. When we heard Kukjanim talk about a free society and the kind of society we want to live in, and how he is there, applying the principle to the way society is run, and how we should try to strive for a small state and a free people where we can fulfill our responsibilities. So that's it. Okay? Do you want to pray together with me? Heavenly Father, we want to understand the ways in which you reach out to us. If we think about when our life has gone forward, the people who have helped us, those are all examples of how you've brought people into our life to meet our needs, to help us to solve problems, to have confidence, to teach us, hopefully, about your ways, about your principle. Heavenly Father, we pray that we can be people who can also come into other people's lives and really have a relevant impact, Heavenly Father, really be able to bring together the circumstances and situations with what we have to offer and be able to make a difference in our local community around here. Not just around here, Heavenly Father, but as blessed families, we want to have a sense of being tribal messiahs, of developing a community around where we physically live and really helping to build your kingdom in our street, around our children's schools, in our workplace. Heavenly Father, I pray for our whole congregation this morning that you can help them to reflect and explore how to practice this at home and at work, just in learning how to see other people's needs, listen to other people's circumstance, and respond in a way that you are able to work through them. I pray and report these things in my name, Simon Cooper, Blessed Central Family, Archie.
All right.